So we will begin the meeting with the call to order and introductions.
Just go around.
I mean, are we being called or, okay, I'll start. Jeff Sims, Environmental Protection Commission, Chair.
Mike Williams, Hillsborough County Development Services. Jake Collins, Planning Commission staff.
Megan Nixon, Engineering and Operations.
Samantha Festy, Hasbury County Community and Infrastructure Planning Department.
Policy Wagner, Florida Department of Health.
On Digital City or Town Terry.
Adam Purcell, City of Tampa.
Jesus Esperanza Garcia with Art.
Danny Collins, Planning Commission staff.
Elizabeth Watkins, TPO staff. And Chair, online we have Sarah Gremick from the county as well. That's the only TAC member we have online, but there is an in-person forum.
All right, very good. So we have a quorum. Next up is public comment. Do we have anybody from the public that wishes to speak? Appears to be no one inside. Online, do we take online comments? If they were
If they were here, we could.
Yes. Okay, all right, so far so good. Next up is the approval of the minutes from June. We skipped last month. So they were with the agenda packet. Is there any comments or questions on the minutes?
Motion approved.
Appears to be none. Jesus with the motion to approve. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second from Danny. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, our agenda items, what do you call them? The ones that require vote on are done. So up for the next is status reports. First up, 27 to 36 transit development plan.
Good afternoon, TAC. This is Brother Garcia, our staff. This is an informational item just to provide you an update on the transit development plan, or TDP, specifically the results from the outreach efforts we conducted in March. So first, a little refresher, the TDP is a 10-year vision plan that we update every 5 years. It is a requirement by FDOT for receiving state funding, but it's also an opportunity to work on our vision for the future. Major updates are required every 5 years, with annual updates in intermediate years. This one we're working on right now is a major update. So as you can see on the slide, the TDP is closely linked with the TPO planning process. The TDP works as the first 10 years of the transit component of the LRTP, which is 25 years. So in March, we conducted a lot of outreach for both riders and non-riders, including a survey, vision workshops, and internal or in-reach outreach with our internal in-reach engagement with CART employees. We promoted the survey and the workshops using several different channels shown on the slide, things like a project website, social media, and press release. We did this outreach in partnership with the TPO. I'm very grateful for the support that TPO provided in the form of funding and consulting support. I have to give a shout out to Angelo, because it was Kittleson who was the outreach the consultant that helped us with this outreach effort. He told me to not say anything, but so for the survey, we received 800 responses. Here we asked people to rank their priorities in terms of desired connections or potential improvements to the service. Here, from the survey, the top connections that were identified was Airport to downtown, Random to downtown, and East Tampa to West Tampa. In terms of priorities for New York enhanced service, some things we heard about are better connections to other counties and improvements to frequency and span. And there was also strong interest in bus rapid transit and bus stop amenities. I'm gonna tell you something, people love bus stops, okay? For the in-person workshops, we did 10 total workshops throughout the county for a total of almost 60 attendees. Here we asked people to talk to us about their priorities based on the area where they live and their most desired connections and improvements. So it was similar to the survey, but more like hands-on in person with people. From the workshops, what we heard were transit connections. The top were Wesley Chapel, University area, and downtown. And for frequency improvements, we had workshops unlike the survey. We talked about specific routes, and the top 3 were routes serving Province Village, Brandon, 56th Street, and Mill Green Highway. Other key things identified in the workshops, people talked a lot about increasing frequency on hourly routes. Support for bike lanes and sidewalk connections to bus stops. The need for improved information regarding details on schedule changes. And there's also support for new types of service, such as bus rapid transit, airport connectors, and the streetcar extension. We conducted 2 internal workshops with like bus operators, maintenance staff, art administrative staff. You will see in the slide similar themes to the ones we identified in the public workshops, especially as it pertains to connections and priorities, improvements. We also received information on this higher route frequency improvements, and they very much match what the public said. For example, routes 8 and route 36. Outside of the public and internal outreach we conducted, we also interviewed key stakeholders and agency partners, including those shown on the slide. City of Capital is represented by Adam here. We talked to this stakeholder because we wanted to understand their vision for transportation for the community at large, and also how hard we could better work with them to advance transportation improvements. Key themes identified from these interviews include prioritize service that maximize the benefit to most people, including frequency on existing routes. That was something that we heard quite a bit, like focus on what you already do well instead of going crazy doing other things that you don't do already. Airport to downtown was mentioned quite a bit of a buzzword if you ask me, but it is a priority. And lastly, a very interesting thing we heard is working on our arts visibility in the community, especially as it pertains to communicating our successes, our benefits, our accomplishments. Okay, now that we completed the outreach phase, so this is kind of like the step-by-step of CDP. This is provided by FDOT or the guidance, cutter guidance for the TDP. Now we are on to working on different sections of the document, including the operational analysis of the existing system and coordination with land use and development services or processes. In the next couple of months, we'll finalize the 10-year operating capital program, which includes the ridership demand estimation, financial plan, and list of priority projects, which is for that outreach I just talked about feeds into, among other variables. This will go to the hard board for final approval in November, and then it will be transmitted to FDOT. The last update or the final update for the CPO board and communities will be in January, and then we'll present the final vision number. And with that, thank you for your time, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Good. All right, thank you, Jesus. Do we have any questions?
Going to CAC on Wednesday, so please go hard on me.
So you said this is the major update is going to come in 2027. Is this like the annual update, like the precursor to that kind of?
So the updates are submitted in March. So March of 27 is the 27 to 36.
Okay.
So we're working on it in town. We're always like a year ahead,
Right.
if you will.
Okay. Was there, I don't know if this was kind of outside the scopes, but you know, was there complaints that were part of the survey that you found? Was that like something you requested? Is there anything that people have problems with that they wanted to bring to me or anything?
Yeah. Anytime you open up the opportunity for feedback, you'll hear things like my operator this morning was rude, or my boss was late yesterday. So that type of thing does come up a lot. But I think overall there are themes we identified, and those are the ones I summarized.
Okay. And the ones, like where they identify what they feel like should be priorities, does that kind of match what's already a priority for you guys? Or is it something where you're going to maybe go back and look at some of the routes?
Yeah, it was interesting because you're right. We have our own ideas of what the priorities are, but then we talk to people, we talk to stakeholders, and we're like, okay, so we're not too far out there. We're all more or less in line of what we should prioritize. We're very big on frequency. That's always been like a big thing for us internally as staff, and that came up a lot during the outreach.
Okay. And how does the Wesley Chapel like affect Hart in that it's outside of Hillsborough?
It's interesting. So we do have one Wesley Chapel route. I mean, goes into Wiregrass, which is barely across the county line. I think I'm going to say two things. So, the outreach you saw, the sample size is small.
Right.
It's 59 people. There was one USF student that lives in Wesley Chapel, and he spoke a lot to that. And we also had this outreach event at a community center in Progress Village. There was a badminton league that day. There was all these people playing badminton. And when they took their break, they walked in and they provided feedback, and they all came from Wesley Chapel. So.
Yeah.
So take it with a grain of salt, sample size, but there is a cross-county need that did come up quite a bit. It's not just the one lopsided small sample size thing, but
Mhm.
Okay, that's.
Sure.
I laughed when you made the joke about people love bus stops, and I wonder if you could elaborate on that. Is that people requesting more stops from existing routes, or are there like new amenities that you're hearing a lot from your customers?
mostly amenities. Shade is important, not just from the sun, but also like rain. Benches, we hear mostly about shelters, and most of the time shelters come with benches, so I guess it's a win-win. But yeah, it's mostly like new ADA accessibility, you know, like if it's like a bus stop that's in the grass, kind of like bringing you up to code. So we hear a lot about that. It's very visible too. If you roll, that's the gateway to the system. That's the first thing people see. So that's why it's top of mind for a lot of people.
Okay, any other questions, comments? All right, I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is urban expansion area planning.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jay Collins with the Planning Commission, and I'm going to get some help because I'm technologically inept. So, while Elizabeth brings that up, let me just go ahead and preface this with what I'm going to go ahead and go over with you guys. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Is a little bit of where we've been, where we are, and where we're going. And I'm doing this with the preface that I want to talk about process and what we've heard from the public. So if you're interested in some of the data that the consultant has collected, what they're doing with that data, we have a very robust website here at Plan Hillsborough that you can go and you can find out so much data, it'll make your eyes roll into the back of your head. So where are we, what are we doing, why are we doing this? An urban expansion area is a reasonably new policy initiative that we have here in unincorporated Hillsborough County, but it's not unlike any other kind of a land use study or a community study that you might do. What is a little bit different about it is we're actually looking at rural areas of the county, and we're having a conversation about transitions in these areas of what might happen if today they're rural, but in 10, 15, 20 years, they are more akin to what you see in Brandon or West Chase or any other area that's within the urban service boundary. So why? Well, we don't have enough vacant developable land within the urban service boundary for the population and the employment that we expect through the planning horizon of 2050. When I'm out talking with people, I always tell them what we do here is where do people live, where do people work, and how do they get around? That's basically what we're charged to do, the least common to actually have it on a bumper sticker. So going all the way back to 2023, we started this conversation. One of the first things that the Board of County Commissioners did is they told us to go look at Vaughn and Waimama and change those areas from WVR2 and RP2 into Res 4. We completed that, and you can see some of that today. There are new schools that are going into Waimama. There are new subdivisions that are being built down there, and there's a lot of building activity in South County. Phase 2 is an additional study where we actually cracked open the policy for the UEA. We looked at the areas of I-4 and the areas of Little Manatee South. One of the things about this is these are study areas, so these are recommendations. So when you see the huge swath for I-4 in the purple, it's about 38,000 acres. Obviously, be mindful, it's just a recommendation. So do we expect the consultant to provide a recommendation for all 38,000 acres? No, because that would be just voluminous. There's no reason that you would actually look at that, because again, we would be looking then, instead of 2050, we'd be looking out probably at 2100 or even further out for urban services all through that area. So again, this is an 18-month study. We've been doing this since July of last year. This is $350,000 study, and we are specifically answering questions in future land use objective 1.3, A little bit about what that is. Again, talked about it. Population and job growth, that's the purpose. Where will people go? Some of those policies to guide development. One of the big things that we talk about is that the UEA as a planning tool needs to talk about infrastructure and the funding for that infrastructure and basically start to lay out what type of infrastructure do we need, whether it's water, whether it's sewer, what about parks, what about schools, what about transportation, and also paying for that. What type of mechanisms do we have to pay for that, whether they are impact fees today or impact fees that we may be able to look at in the future to actually talk about new fees for these areas specific. And then again, that's how they must address these areas, whether it's a land use transition going from rural to suburban to urban, public facility and transportation needs, environmental coordination, and all the other things which again are laid sacrosanct to any type of land use or transportation plan that you do. So where have we been a little bit? Again, round one was basically assets, where we went out and we talked with folks in these communities and said, what makes these communities special to you? What are some assets that you see here? What can be leveraged if we actually did change some of these languages, some of these communities? Round two is again, talking about some of that community mapping, and we brought back with them some existing conditions. So we started having that conversation, and some of those existing conditions, again, talk about, and I'll show you some of the transportation work in here about what we have today on the ground and what may come. So as we look at long-range transportation plans, whether it's a needs or a cost affordable, or just looking forward and looking out. One of the things, obviously, within Little Manatee South in this area, there's a lot of activity that's already going on out there. As we've been planning for this, there has been DOT work that's starting on the possibility of a new interchange. There is work that's ongoing for expanding corridors out in this area, going into that plan for unincorporated Hillsborough County. The state has actually stepped in and done some work with a rural stewardship district in this area. So it's kind of a double-edged sword because it allows us to say we have something that we can look at, but it is also very difficult when you're actually working with the public because the public is doing the chicken or the egg with you. So again, existing conditions, round two, that land use workshop, and then round three, where we are right now, talks about a preferred alternative, little word that we get to have with the transportation group here. But basically, it's looking at scenarios. What we're doing is we're testing scenarios with the group. We have 3 scenarios. The scenarios are complete for Little Manatee South. You can go online right now and you can see those scenarios. When I talk about scenarios, we talk about place types. Place types, again, are also used in a little bit in some of the transportation planning when you start talking about socioeconomic data, where we're starting to have conversations about, well, what might this area become in 10, 15, 20 years? So some of our place types that we're using where we're looking at employment centers, or we're looking at industrial areas, or we're looking at town centers in these areas. So we're starting to have those conversations and it provides a vision for people, but it also is something that is not so reactive as a land use. Because if I have a conversation with somebody about office commercial 20, already they have an exact idea of what that means and they don't want to talk to me about it in the rural area. Where we go in round 4, which is our final plan and our maps, basically what we'll be looking at in that time is a preferred scenario. If you do go online and you look at the 3 scenarios, please be mindful that what those 3 scenarios will do is we'll take some of the best attributes, not we, the consultant, we'll take some of the best attributes of those 3 scenarios and build a 4th scenario out of them to go back to the public with. And that will then have some recommendations. All this time, round 1, 2, 3, and 4, we've been having conversations with various departments in unincorporated Hillsborough County, as well as countywide things such as the school district, to have some conversations with folks about where we are in the process, as well as what might happen if we do actually have some of these recommendations from the UEA about providing services in these areas if the Board of County Commissioners should pursue those recommendations for any expansions in the urban service boundary, whether that is the near term, midterm, or far term within the planning horizon. So this just shows you a little bit of a map of where we are in Little Manatee South. Basically, you can see US 41 on the west side of the map going north to south, I-75 on the western extreme going north and south. Again, this is an interesting area. You see some development of either, bless you. hugs US 41 or hugs the river to the north. And then you see a lot of agricultural land that's in this area. Again, it's unique. There is one landowner that owns a couple thousand of these acres in this area. Some of the transportation, there's not a lot to talk about, honestly, here outside of what might happen with a proposed interchange, what might happen with a road that connects US 41 through 75 all the way to 301 eventually. It's conceptual to put any of this on the map because again, we don't know if some of these roads might actually dip down into Manatee County before they go over to 301. Again, those corridors are not set. You can see on a map, you can look at who owns lands down here. You can see where TECO owns right of ways. You can see where the county owns right of ways. You can see where private property owners own large swaths of property as well. So what have we heard? Well, obviously, a lot of it is preserve what we have. Why aren't we looking at this area? Why aren't we doing more in the urban service boundary? Part of that is always that we talk about we're having a conversation with folks down there. We always think it's better for government to have a conversation. The government just simply step in and say, here, this is now happening to you. Everybody can respect that. Everybody does like that. They're really happy that we are there. They're still pushing back on the idea of this area suburbanizing in any form. They would much rather see it rural. We do have obviously some folks who own property within the study area. They do have a little bit of a different take about it where they would like to see the ability to develop their property, and everybody in the area, whether you live outside of the study area, whether you're to the east, or excuse me, to the east of I-75 or north of the river, everybody is looking for better infrastructure down here. Everybody is concerned about flooding in this area. Everybody is concerned about transportation, especially with evacuation of this area for storm events. This is the I-4 area. Again, this is well over 30,000 acres. That yellow line that is going north and south, which I believe is Branch Forbes, we put that on here because the city of Plant City, that is the western boundary for their vision area. And it's one of the things that we want to have conversations and are having conversations with the city of Plant City, that if there are any recommendations in this area at all, to the best of our ability, they would mimic some of those ideas that the city of Plant City is having. Again, 38,000 acres. We don't really see the need for all of this acreage for that 2050 planning horizon. But it does go all the way south down to State Road 60, goes all the way north to Fennosassa over to San Allen, and to the west it goes over to the Executive Airport. If you are familiar with this area, you will know that this area already has some infrastructure, especially around the Executive Airport and some other areas along US 92. And there's a lot of work that is going on currently in this area for transportation, primarily with the east-west roadways that the Florida Department of Transportation, the state of Florida, has some control over, whether that's State Road 574, US 92, State Road 60. So there is a bit of work that is ongoing in this area. Furthermore, just for the county, there are also 51 different CIP projects that are ongoing in this area for the next 5 years. Here, same thing. They're also talking about the preserved area's rural and agricultural character. I would say that there's a little bit of a difference here with what we see with the amount of development that has already occurred here, how some of that land is cut up already when you look at what you have in LMS. Some of the assets that we have here with the transportation network that has already been slated for some improvement with the Department of Transportation, as well as the limited access roads, toll facilities that are coming onto I-4 in the future. So again, they talked about addressing transportation and infrastructure before considering growth, flooding again, drainage and stormwater concerns in this area, protection of natural areas and waterways that we have here. But again, they also do see that there are some growth opportunities in this area as well. So a little bit of, again, where we are and where we're going. Right now, if you go onto the website, you will see that there is a survey for Little Manatee South. That survey is going through August the 14th, and it is specific to those 3 scenarios that we have available right now that you can see running the gambit from more traditional suburban development that you would see on the north side to something that is more akin to town center, new urbanist type of development that you might see Think West Chase, like 2 or 3 West Chases put together with that idea of a downtown and a spoken wheel coming out from around it, that sort of development pattern. I-4, we are reviewing right now scenarios with county departments. We will hopefully have those finished and available for the public here in a couple of weeks when we meet with them in a virtual meeting first on August the 27th. And then those in-person meetings at Bailey Elementary the next couple of days. And then our 4th round of community meetings we will have in late September and then mid-October respectively in each of those study areas. And again, this is a planning study. It only makes recommendations. So we always want to preface everything that there are no changes to zonings. This is not approved any development. This does not expand the urban service boundary. What this does is simply allow for us to study that, create a recommendation for the Board of County Commissioners. And then obviously, if the board should choose on it to proceed with any of those recommendations, as you all know, that starts another process, which could take 6-9 months, even further out for any expansion of the urban service boundary. So again, I've talked a little bit about it. That is our website for this. You can submit public comments if for your specific departments that you have or anything else that you're involved in. We love for folks to promote this. So if you have social media back in your department or your jurisdiction, please do feel free to retweet us or submit anything that you have on social media for us. So that's it. If you have any questions, you all know me, but also project manager Sophia Garantiva and Andrea Poppinger, and I believe Andrea is also available online to help us with any questions that y'all may have. So thank you for your time, and this concludes the presentation.
All right, thank you, Jay. Comments?
Yeah, thank you very much for the interesting presentation. 2 questions. The first one is related to the impact on the transportation network. I'm talking specifically about I-4, the area next to I-4. Are you expecting or are you planning to use modeling?
Yes.
Also, this would be great. The other point is that I-4 is already failing with respect to capacity. Would you be looking into, I don't know, like securing funds, finding alternative routes, or how are you going to be managing the increase in travel demand, given that I-4 is already failing and also Macintosh is failing, I believe. So major roadways are failing. There's no capacity.
So these are good questions, and these are things that you're actually sounding a lot like citizens, right? So the citizens are saying the exact same thing. They're educated. They're following that same line with us. The consultant is charged with looking for additional funding. The consultant is charged with finding ways that are creative to deliver infrastructure in additional ways. Whether that is a CDD, community developments, where you can actually build roads within the communities, or whether we're looking at different types of impact fees, as well as within that modeling to try to have some understandings about where the disperse of the transportation will go. So what do we build at Macintosh? What do we build at Sefner, right? Whether it's something that would actually create trips on the interstate or disperse those trips elsewhere.
Exactly, yeah. I was talking about transportation engineer. Thank you.
Yes, Adam?
Yeah, quick question. So I know this is a little bit of a difficult one to answer because it's driven by private sector, but so Brightline, looking at coming from Orlando to Tampa, I know they're in some financial difficulties right now. They're talking about reorganization, but they're still talking about retaining the potential to expand their system once they get through whatever financial reorganization they need to do. Are you guys considering at all the kind of what impact that kind of transportation system could have on particularly the I-4 corridor? I know typically Brightline's perspective has been, if you can make the business case of why we need a station in your community, then we'll consider putting a station in your community. So I think that might be from a ridership perspective, if there's a scenario or a part of a scenario that could look at maybe more of a, an alternatives focused kind of mode. I would recommend that maybe we consider Brightline as part of that, final future transportation system.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Zeus.
Thanks, Jay. More than a question, it's a comment. The Little Manatee South,
Mhm.
we have it on our radar. One of the, I don't know how we would serve that area, but we still have it on the radar because one of the stakeholder interviews, one or two mentioned that area. Apparently there's this big developer guy person. And they even talked about high rises and I was like, what? So I just think it's interesting you guys are looking at it and apparently there's some development interest as well. And you mentioned the need for infrastructure, so we definitely want to be at the table when those conversations are happening. So thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, thank you. Little Manatee is interesting in that it is just as quick to get to downtown. Actually, it's quicker to get to downtown St. Petersburg than it is to downtown Tampa by going south and across the Sunshine Skyway. So we actually are having conversations with a lot of people who are talking about Manatee County with us when they start talking about some of the transportation network down there.
Yeah.
So I could see, just like earlier when you were talking about Pasco County and Wesley Chapel, that perhaps in the future, there may be ability to have some of Manatee County coming up here, or you guys going down into Manatee.
Yeah. Thanks.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Hang on.
We're just.
You get off that easy.
Sorry, great presentation. Mike, I'm sorry to put you on the spot too, but I'm really curious. So if this goes through and the Board of County Commissioners decides to change the future land use category, how does that interplay with the land development code? And could there be any?
For which one, Little Manatee or both?
Oh,
Okay, good question. So, couple things. Let's start with Little Manatee, because that was I feel like a lot further along, because there's really a very large property owner down there that's really driving some of this. In fact, the interchange was added to the, it's in the comp plan now, and
for preservation.
the preservation map, just got added a month ago or so, like that. And we've had meetings with them, they've had meetings with DOT about the interchange, but we've also started talking to them about the roads and all that network, like at least the main road. But they would have to get zoning on all this property, so that, sure, you can change the comp plan and the future land use and all that stuff. That doesn't mean you can build anything. They will quickly be coming with the zoning as the comp plan gets closer to whenever it's gonna be approved, which I think is kind of tentatively like early next year, right, Jay? Is that?
Well, again,
For Los Manatee first.
yeah, and again, these are just recommendations to the board. The board would then have to act on recommendations to start a plan amendment process. If they said, go put res 4, res 6 and CMU 12 up and down these areas, which would then take another 6 to 9 months. So,
But the zoning's gonna have to travel.
yeah,
Either concurrent with, well, after the initial part of the board. To travel concurrent with the comp plan or right after. And it's really the same thing it would be the same thing up along the I-4 corridor. All the difference there is there's not like one large landowner sort of driving something. But the thing with Little Manatee though is they're trying to get this stuff in place sort of ahead of all this development, or at least concurrent with, as opposed to, all the development comes and then it's like, hey, we should think about infrastructure then. That kind of comes later.
and part of the goal of the recommendation, if adopted by the board, it allows for a bit of known for all parties involved of what might come next for the area. So again, a private applicant can still ask to expand the urban service boundary in either of these areas that we're studying. Once you have an adopted urban expansion area map showing just what might come in some of these areas, it allows staff, the public, and elected and appointed officials something as a bar to set to react to when you have a private or a publicly initiated change in the area.
Okay, good questions. All right, thank you, Jay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
All right, next up is the ICAST.
Steve, I think I'm technologically challenged too, probably thinking. Hey, I use punch cards. So, come on, give me a break.
Get your IBM out of your back pocket.
Yeah, right. Yeah, ask Brian to join me too. Thank you for, I think some of you folks have seen a version of this presentation a few months ago on dynamic, all red extension. This is Ryan Casburn from our office as well. We will have moments for questions at the end. Brian has assured me that I will take all the easy questions and he will take all the difficult questions. So thank you, Ryan. I really appreciate that. Also, coincidentally, I promise you it's completely coincidentally, this happens to be Stop Red Light Running Week nationally. And I promise you, we didn't time it. It just kind of worked out this way, which is perfect. So thank you, Karma and the universe. Really appreciate that. So what we're going to be talking about briefly today is just principle is going to be about with red light running crashes that we know happen all the time. We'll get into that in a minute. What could we do to actually prevent the crash? I can't do anything personally. Ryan can't do anything. Almost anybody can't do anything about the actual person running the red light. If they're going to run a red light, they're going to run a red light. What can we do to at least prevent a crash or at least put the near miss into a non-miss, into a total miss consideration? So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about. Also, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you at the end, if you could please, this is going to be sort of a turnkey operation. Like sort of almost like a package deal that then the TCO may decide to give to some of its agents and say, hey, what do you think about all red light running and preventing it? Here's a protocol that could help you. So what I'm going to ask you to think about, not right now, but at the end, is what would make this turnkey useful for your organization? And then who should be the point of contact to solicit feedback? I wouldn't mind if you can think about that a little bit as we then go to Q&A. Okay, so when I was the manager of the city of Lakeland, I implemented this program and I called it ICAST. You don't have to call it ICAST. As you can see, there's a title, it's a mouthful. You can call it whatever you want. In fact, I recommend a contest. Kind of have a countywide contest to name that program. But certainly it's something that should be personal to your community. Unfortunately, I have to report the sad news first. Let's get that out of the way. It's just hard to believe, almost, it's probably more now because this is 2024 data. Probably in the order of 1,200 fatalities every year, 2024, 1119 to be exact. And the Institute of Highway Safety, because of the red light running campaign this week, says that in the last 10 years, fatalities have increased 60%, 60% in the last 10 years. So it's getting worse. It's not getting any better. But that's pretty sad. And as you can see, about 141,000 injury crashes, not to mention all the non-recurring congestion that occurs, the emissions, all that bad stuff that goes along, secondary crashes. It's not a good thing. You do not want to get into this kind of crash no matter what. And by the way, from an enforcement perspective, I'm told many of my colleagues on enforcement, it's one of the worst enforcement protocols for law enforcement because they have to actually witness the red light run and then chase them. Ain't good. That's not a good thing. There has been a blue light now that's been installed. At least the officer could stay on the far side of the intersection. Thank goodness. So at least it's a little bit safer for them. So it's not a very pleasant enforcement strategy either. Some quick estimates. These are not, I can only call them estimates for now. These are computational in terms of what's happening here in the county. That'll have to come. That data will be shown. But just to give you a sense of scale, I mean, it's 5 too many fatalities in Hillsborough County. And again, that's just a computed number. We'll have to prove that later. And still in the order of 600 injuries a year. Again, 600 too many. So our premise is, can we predict this thing happening? That's the whole purpose of this quote unquote ICAST or red light prediction program, where what if we could predict that a person is going to run a red light? And if we could predict that they're going to run a red light, then could we at the very least, instead of doing nothing, let it happen, could we at least delay the perpendicular green? And yes, does that mean that they got away with a red light run? Yeah, I'm sorry, they did. They're going to do that. But at least we prevented the crash and created a near miss instead of a hit. So that's the whole premise about this whole thing. And this just gives you a sense of scale as to, well, what actually is happening. The vehicle is being sensed or detected depending on speed and distance. That's basic math, really. It's not very, very complicated. And then it communicates that sensor communicates with the controller and says, aha, we got one. Does it fit the protocol? And if it does, then let's delay the perpendicular green from anywhere from 2 to 4, maybe even 5 seconds. I got into, the reason why I started this, because at the city of Lakeland, when I was driving to work, I had a 7-second run after the green light went on. So I just literally was missed by 1 meter, about 3 feet, and I wouldn't be here today. So that's when this whole thing came up in terms of trying to solve this problem. So it's a real problem, and it's just happening all the time. Basically, yeah, this is just a quick sketch of the kinds of, it's a sensor, controller's in the cabinet anyway, you got it anyway, and it's just a matter of communicating the sense of this vehicle and then communicating it to the controller for action. And then basically, it's this kind of roughly depicts, I mean, I had it animated, but it's not, that's okay, it's not animated. You guys can imagine that it senses the vehicle and then waits, in this case, 3 seconds of delay to the perpendicular traffic, and then the green will go on after that 3-second delay. So in fact, the motorist doesn't even know what's happening. It's like, yeah, my old Seinfeld episode guy, the show about nothing. This is the safety measure about nothing. You don't even know what's happening, frankly, because who knows 3 seconds? You're not going to count 3 seconds as a person at the red light. In terms of a timeline for this project that we're talking about, technically, we don't have a notice, but it's very close. We're from the corner. So let's say it is today. We think that the whole project will take about 36 weeks to complete, and of which, I might ask for some help from Ryan here a little bit too. The stars will be kind of like the milestones that we want to reach by September, having literature review. This is just the basic stuff that you have in almost every project. So we have to get through all this kind of stuff. The important things, we want to have a little bit of a timeline in mid-November to have definitely materials to the various committees, and I'll talk about that in a second, by November. And then moving along, you can see that actually having the framework, something to actually touch with real paper, maybe even real paper, forget about computer stuff. Right now, we're going to real paper to look at and have an idea of what this framework or design guidance would be to move forward. Because you want to have your local agencies to want to run with it. We don't want them to have to study it again and again. And we're hoping that it will be a turnkey document that says, okay, page 6 specifically said do this. And then that's the kind of thing we're looking for in terms of this operation. Funding, of course, monitoring, and then in February, if all went well, have some documentation, final documentation to the TPO, and then from that point on, we'll go from there. We want to work with the committees, various committees, TPO, and other stakeholders. That's a big part of this whole project. Of course, we want to get back, like I said, in February with the report, and then. As you can see, I said February, then April, an absolute kind of final protocol in terms of this thing hopefully getting into the hands of others that could actually implement it into the field. And as I said earlier, here's a couple of questions that I just kind of like you to kind of contemplate maybe, or this is not the place, by all means, please. Harry Walsh is our project manager at the TPO level. So if you want to either communicate with us now or with Harry later, as you wish. Be happy to hear that. And again, all the difficult questions go to Ryan. He agreed to this. Thank you. Any questions?
All right, very interesting. Yes, go ahead.
All right, so first thing I want to know how this tie into MTCD. And then what is the per intersection cost? And then this region is transitioning. You're a new player in this game, autonomous vehicles. So what is the guarantee that this system communicates, work, interacts, and provide a desired result?
Let me start, and maybe Brian, you could. So I said we implemented this in Lakeland, And it's 30 intersections in Lakeland and county, and it seems to be working very well. The MVTCD, I was able to go back to 2012. I'm sure it's even earlier than that. At least in 2012, there is a specific option to have exactly what we're doing. In fact, the only thing, they didn't call it ICAS. What were they thinking? Come on. So it almost verbatim is the program because it permits optionally to detect, sense and detect, and if so, the allowance to extend the all red codes. So that is in the MTCB in place at least since 2012, if not earlier. I can vouch for 2012. From an efficiency perspective, as it says, Cedar Lakeland certainly work. We just got some information now. The North Carolina has a program called DARE, D-A-R-E, that's very similar. And don't quote me, but I believe if my memory is correct, they were showing something like in the order of a 30% reduction in red light running crashes. That sound about right? Something in that order. So from an effectiveness perspective, it seems to be doing the trick. And I think you said cost. Yeah. So as you know, most intersections today, I can't think of an intersection that doesn't have some kind of a sensing system is in place anyway. So this would be an incremental cost to the existing sensing system, in the order of $15,000 to $25,000 incremental cost on top of any other sensing system. Now, of course, there's always the volume issue. If one would have volume, that number would shrink even more. But let's say in the order of $15,000 to $25,000 per intersection to deal with this.
And that's addition to our study as well. Look into.
Correct. Well, we're really looking at that as well to verify. Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, what roadway types is this most suited for? I don't know if you did that kind of analysis in Lakeland before you roll it out. Is it a high-speed suburban corridor? Is it, where does it work best from your?
That's a great question. I mean, we work diligently with District 1 in Lakeland, and all of, let's see, 30, I think 26 are on state intersections. So we deliberately chose, the US 98s, State Road 37, State Road 33, US 92, all of the large arterial roadways, 4, 6, 8 lanes, that it would probably have the most efficient effect, if you will, because of the sheer volume and the desire to run a red light, unfortunately. So that's kind of how we did it in Lakeland, and we see no reason why to do that here. First part of the study is to evaluate what is the best cross-section or arterial roadway to consider the system on. That'll be part of it.
Okay.
Yeah, great question.
Any other questions? Yeah, Jesus.
Thank you, guys. So you mentioned there's like a 3-second delay once the sensor determines.
That's an average. It could vary from 2 to even 5 seconds, depending on the roadway.
Is the sensor capable of determining hey, 3 is enough, or maybe let's do 5? In your case, it was 7.
Yeah, well, it wasn't in. That's why I put it in, because it would never go to 7. I don't think we would frankly, very rare exception to go to 7 seconds. That would appear to be too long, but we would have to see that. There seems to be a sweet spot of somewhere between 2 to 4 seconds where it makes the best sense. And then the algorithm is going to have to spend a little bit more time determining, is it worth it under 2 seconds? And is it worth it above 4 seconds? So that's part of the algorithm watch to see if it's appropriate. What we don't want to do is send out so many false positives that then people do notice and they get a little frustrated, and then could it adversely affect coordination? So that's why it's a very delicate balance to make sure that we find that sweet spot so that we minimize adverse consequences. You want to add to that?
It's also on top of the existing all red time. So all signals have that all red time, typically like 2 to 3 seconds or so. So this would be 2 to 5 seconds on top of that. In for that extension.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, great question.
Yeah, that's people's get conditional behavior, and that's one thing. If you start running them and then noticing, well, nothing's changing for 5 seconds, I'm just going to keep running it. I mean, it's a small subsection of people, but I think they do notice. One thing I want to make super clear from your point, I mean, I know the answer to this, but I just want to make sure. You're not, there's no talks about extending a yellow. This is solely
Correct.
preventing the green, right? Because that would be
Yeah,
a
this
conditional
is
thing for
strictly
sure.
on red. 100%.
Right, okay, because that would be something. I
No,
think
good,
people could
great,
use.
great point. Excellent point. And if you don't mind me going back to your original comment, I can only speak for City of Lakeland. We're government, right? You always have perfect solutions that nobody complains about anything, right? In all of your endeavors, absolutely, right? 100%, right? Absolutely. This is the one time in my 46-year career that I actually had unanimity, except for encouraging bad behavior. That was the only negative comment that I got about this. That you're exactly to your point, Jeff, that could this be learned? And then in Lakeland, you don't have to do what I'm about to say. So I don't want to rock the boat here too much. What the protocol we started with in Lakeland was to have our sensors put in only where I already had red light running cameras. So you're going to get a citation. You could get a bad behavior any day of the week, you're going to get a citation. Now, from that, we expanded to non-camera locations, but we started with camera locations so that we would address that rewarding bad behavior issue.
I don't think it would be a major problem because there's a bit of a disconnect. Like you said, there's already a delay. I don't know how many people that are running through were paying attention to how long it's going before the next green comes. But I guess my other question would be kind of along that line. Did you do any looks at numbers in Lakeland to say, did you notice more red light runners 2 years after you put it in compared to when you first put it in? Because people maybe were getting conditioned.
Yeah, I wish I could answer that because I did leave the city, I retired from the city and could not, I'd love to answer that question. I'd be a liar if I did. I can speculate that given the data that I've seen in other locations like in North Carolina, oh, by the way, District 5, who we communicated with from District 1, with District 5 at the time, they have a program in place. The anecdotal data, very clear, is that it's reducing red light crashes, and it seems to be because people talk, believe it or not. A few seconds eventually makes a difference. Anecdotally, there seems to be some benefit from a deterrence. Now, I can't prove that. I cannot prove that. That's purely anecdotal data right now. I would love to be able to look me in the eye and say actual data on that. I can't do that right now. Great point.
Yeah, well, the biggest, you hit the nail. I mean, the biggest one is, did it prevent crashes? And that's injuries, and certainly that's the, number one to highlight. And I mean, conceptually, engineering wise, I think it's a really smart idea. It makes a lot of sense. Just, trying to see any holes in the system or anything that could be improvements or anything like that. So,
All right, absolutely. Appreciate it.
any other questions or comments from anyone? Okay.
Real quick, does it pick up e-bikes?
So I'll tell you why the answer is yes, because there was a specific, and I can't take credit for it, in Lakeland. Forgotten the east-west street. It was on US 98. And there was an implementation in reverse, only to help bicyclists get through. So if they could not make the light, and it was obvious they were going into a red condition, the all red was extended, not with this program directly. So the closest I could say to you, Jay, that yes, from a bicyclist perspective, and only from the perspective of extending the all red phase, because the bicyclist was obviously not going to be able to make it through the intersection. So not to prevent red light running crashers per se, it's just to give them an additional few seconds to make it through in an all red condition. That's the closest I can get to right now. And please, maybe if you get a moment to maybe tell Harry what your thoughts are and maybe in the future, who you might wish to have as a stakeholder, your agencies, please, that would be lovely. I know he'll appreciate it. That, I thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, very good. Last item up is the overview of the SS4A, arterial signal time.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the TAC Committee, Jonathan Nixon, Elder, TPO staff. Today I'll provide an overview of the Tampa Bay Arterial Signal Timing and Speed Management Planning Study and Demonstration Project. The TPO will be partnering with the University of Central Florida Smart and Safe Transportation Lab to conduct the study, bringing together local planning expertise with nationally recognized transportation research. Funded with over $2 million from the federal Safe Streets and Roads for All grant program. SMART kicked off in June 2026 and is scheduled to run through June 2030. This grant has been in the works for several years and authorization to proceed, which is why this may seem familiar. This will allow for the TPO and UCF to conduct low-cost, low-disruption safety project implementation, evaluate the results thoroughly, providing insights that will contribute towards planning future safety improvements. Project focuses on conducting supplemental safety analysis along high-entry network corridors and roadways where severe and fatal crashes occur at disproportionately high rates. Using that analysis, we'll pilot several low-cost speed management strategies. These include optimizing traffic signal timing to encourage safer travel speeds, as well as enhancing roadway signage to improve driver awareness and compliance. Selected demonstration corridors will then serve as real-world test locations where these strategies can be implemented and carefully evaluated. A key component of the project is performing before and after analysis, so we can objectively measure how effective these improvements are in reducing speeds and improving overall safety. Ultimately, this effort has two primary goals. First, to make travel safer on corridors with the greatest safety needs, and second, to develop proven, scalable approaches that can be replicated throughout the Tampa Bay region and across the board. This project is organized into 3 phases. Phase 1 focuses on building the analytical foundation. During this phase, we will identify and collect the necessary data, perform preliminary analysis, and conduct more detailed evaluations to identify the corridors where speed management strategies have the greatest safety benefit. Phase 2 moves into planning and design. Based on the findings from phase 1, the project team will develop proposed solutions, prepare a demonstration plan outlining the selected strategies and implementation approach. Phase 3 is the implementation and evaluation phase. This includes developing the demonstration systems, installing any necessary sensors or supporting technology, and collecting performance data throughout the demonstration period. As the project progresses, we're happy to come back and provide updates on implementation and data collection, as well as the evaluation of effectiveness of the demonstration strategies and documented lessons learned. The project will conclude with the final Safe Streets for All report, documenting the results and providing recommendations for future implementation. A major strength of this project is its use of multiple data sources to provide a comprehensive understanding of traffic operations and roadway safety. We will leverage microwave vehicle detection systems, or MVDS, along with automated traffic signal performance measures, or ATSPM, to evaluate traffic flow and signal performance. Kindly note that actual data sources used will ultimately depend on site selection, capabilities, and capacity, or need for additional data sources. We're working on scheduling a stakeholder meeting with local transportation authorities towards the end of August, beginning of September, discuss data and infrastructure access requirements. The operational data will be combined with crash records to better understand where and why severe crashes occur. We'll also incorporate floating vehicle data, which provides valuable information on travel speeds and travel times, as well as publicly available camera feeds and other existing transportation infrastructure. By integrating these diverse data sources, we can make informed decisions, accurately measure project outcomes, and maximize the use of infrastructure that is already in place. In closing, this project represents a practical, evidence-based approach to improving roadway safety. By combining advanced data analysis with targeted low-cost speed management strategies, and identify solutions that save lives, improve traffic operations, to provide a model that can be applied throughout Florida. Thank you, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, great. Thank you. Jonathan, do we have any questions?
Why only microwave detection was the only source? Why not other detections?
There will be other sources as well. It's going to be ultimately depend on the site selection, what existing technologies are available.
Okay, so this seems like it's basically just kicked off, so a lot of what you're saying is what's going to be projected to happen. Just to clarify, you used the phrase on one of the slides, implement and evaluate. So are you intending to have temporary changes that are gonna go in and then pull them off and look at the results, and then what kind of changes are you projecting you might be suggesting?
We will be so possible incorporating new technology or utilizing the existing technology based on the site selection. I think, repeat that second question.
What is that, what kind of, are you talking about, like lowering speed limits temporarily, putting in speed bumps, with things to try? I mean, I'm just throwing out your common examples, but do you have any idea what's on the table yet for what your proposals might be?
I believe signal timing, but also signage as well.
Signage. Okay, but the plan is you would do something for a little while and then look at it and then do the results back. This isn't a permanent change you're suggesting at this point.
Correct, not necessarily.
Right. Oh, it's just kind of clarifying. Yes, Adam.
Just a really quick comment. So City of Tampa received an SS4A grant as well, our 2023 SS4A. We picked 5 corridors within the city. We're going to do demonstration projects. The University of South Florida is helping us do the evaluation of that. So we're getting that rolling. I think we're on about the same timeline. I think we have a shorter evaluation timeframe, but if you're looking for another local study that's doing similar things, happy to hook up with you guys and discuss ideas. But we've got a really similar project underway on 5 corridors in the city.
Yes, I've been in communication with the project manager for those, so we'll synchronize the best.
Okay, awesome. Good to go.
As a USF grad, I'm not sure how much I want to cooperate with UCF, but no, I'm just kidding. But that's interesting to know. And I know USF does, that green color and everything else on the transportation program. So I'm glad to know that they're also doing work, with you guys.
Did I hear a proposed presentation to the TAC? Is that what I heard?
And so we're still working to finalize our grant agreement right now with Federal Highway. Once that's finalized, absolutely, we'd be happy to come in. Give it up.
Thank you. All right, very good.
We're arm wrestling Federal Highway.
Okay, you have any other questions or comments? I'm assuming we'll probably be hearing follow-ups on this topic down the line.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, I guess that covers that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's the last of scheduled activities. Any old or new business?
Just 2 reminders, if that's okay. So the next TAC meeting will be September 2nd, which is a Wednesday, not a normal Monday because of the Labor Day holidays. Should be on your calendar. Just wanted to give you a heads up. And then also, if there are any topic requests, would love to work on those for the committee. I feel like there's an incredible brain trust here from all the cities and the county and different perspectives. So if there's something that you've been wanting to know more about or a project you want to show off, please let me know and I'll work to bring those to your agendas so that this can continue to be a place for thoughtful dialogue. So, around that.
I have a proposed topic.
Okay.
Well, actually, do we have anybody from Istia on here?
Not on the meeting today, but I'll
Okay.
call the Bob.
I'm only asking because our office recently got some complaints about some of the new construction going on with their expansion.
Okay.
If we could maybe just get a overview of their, scheduled expansion and the timeline and where it's going to be occurring, across their system.
You got it.
That'd be
That's
Tree impacts by chance.
primarily noise and vibration. Yeah. Because they're constructing a new, I didn't know this, that's why I occurred there. I guess they're adding a new off ramp down near downtown. This is down the line. So, yeah, I think a little closer to downtown, but yeah, right in that area.
Yeah, they did a survey like last year about it, I think. So opinion poll a while ago.
Well, they've started doing the work, and so some of the neighbors are complaining about the noise vibrations. And I'm not saying that that's a very difficult thing. Transportation and noise, you kind of just have to suck it up almost. But sometimes they can do things to lessen the impact. But more so, I was like, it helps a lot when they complain to us that we can provide more up-to-date data and timelines for how long it's going to last. And that generally kind of softens it a little bit when they have an idea, because the response we got from the contractor was, deal with it, it's gonna go on for 3 years, which was an absolutely horrible, way to try to,
That's a great way to respond.
engage with trying to be a neighbor to the neighborhoods.
Maybe we need to turn it to a public agency.
So,
Wow.
yeah, but I think most of that actual project is at least to the settling stage and, so.
Then they're widening as well.
Right, that's the part I don't really know it all, or maybe I've just forgotten it. That's why, yeah, it doesn't have to be a lengthy presentation. It's probably an easy one for them to tee up and give just some of the details and some schematics.
Yeah,
It doesn't have to be next month, but sometime, down the line. So just an idea.
maybe while they're at it, we could add the 301 extension in there as well.
That PD&E?
Yeah.
All right, any other comments?
I was just gonna say as a side, I believe it's September 16th, Melissa, Zornita and Greg, I just forgot his last name, Slater?
Slater.
For FIA, yeah, executive director. They'll be providing a presentation to BFCC on Riverview's updated its community plan. US 301.
No, you said 16.
I believe it's September 16th, yeah. We're working on getting that.
That's certainly a major thing with all the growth out in the Riverview area and Waimama, and then I feel like something's gonna have to be done down the line. So curious how that's progressing. Any other questions or suggestions?
They're expanding that, the PD&E to go all the way to 674 now, instead of just Big Bend.
I don't doubt it. Every time we get more calls about, it's just funny how, like you say, there's one thing I really appreciate about this group, and I promise I'm gonna wrap up me. But, there is a lot of different dynamics of agencies that go in, and we're on the environmental side, so we see it. You guys, you see the planning really early, then we see it when they're slashing the ground and wanting to burn it. And then complaints about the construction and the dust and stuff, and then, it's just interesting to see how it all ties together, and we see dust development happening down there near 674, and it's just blowing up, so I'm not surprised when, they're saying, hey, we need to already consider going further than we thought, because it's just crazy what's happening in Waimana, and that's funny when he was talking about the parish area. I've always thought of that as kind of a separate thing, and I was driving through there and there's this big building out of nowhere, and I'm just envisioning all of that's gonna be popping up with subdivisions around it, because that's kind of one of the only semi-untouched lands out in the area anymore, it seems, at least off of a major highway. So again, interesting, been doing this for a while, I just find that stuff. So that's one thing I appreciate about everybody's input, and I appreciate everybody offering it to the presenters. So, all right, I promised I would end it, and I will. Any other questions or comments? All right, with that, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we can get the. This is.